Welcome everybody to the Click podcast. This is your safe space for all things DAO ops related. The DAO space is kind of hard to keep track on your own, but then with the Click podcast, you can now traverse this ever fast moving space to kind of get your alpha and operational insights from some of the best people within this space. Operators who work closely for the progress of the DAO revolution. I'm your co-host Abhishek Ajit, and along with me is my co-host Abhishek Sanavne. Hi
Hey
Abhishek, what's
man,
up?
doing good, dude.
Wonderful, fantastic man. It's a wonderful day over here, and nothing. For this podcast, we have someone who I admire not just because of his insights, but because of his packed schedule, the sort of initiatives that he is rolling with. I think, besides the governance insights, he should start a book on time management. We have with us Jan Resina slash Punkar, who's actually one of the most prolific contributors I've seen. He works closely with GitcoinDAO. He's a co-founder of Bankless. He's a delegate for MakerDAO. He is also working closely with Llama. And those are his hobbies. We haven't gotten to the career part yet. Hi, Pankar. Nice to have you on the show.
Hey Abhishek, thank you for having me and thank you for a great introduction. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to keep up with all the stuff, but so far I'm enjoying it. As you said, it's kind of a hobby. Being in Web3 and like see what you can do and all the impact. So that's kind of what keeps me going, even during some longer days and longer weeks. Yeah, and excited to be here.
Lovely. We are even more stoked to have you on board. Now, before we kind of get things rolling, I know that your name is Jan, but what does Pankar mean? Let's just start off with that little detail off, please.
Yeah, so the government when I was born gave me, or my parents gave me like name Jan, but when I enter Web3, I kind of changed it to nickname, which is Punkar. It was actually originally Punchar. It's like the soft C there, but it would be too hard probably to pronounce for people. So I just stick with like a regular C. And there is not it's not that exciting story. It was just my friend during high school gave me that kind of nickname uh when we were hanging out, and I started using it when I did like some gaming or basically all the online things. I just use it as a nickname, and because Web3 is basically only online, I was just like, yeah, it's better to use that. It's unique, everyone can kind of remember it well, so I just stick to it.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, there's kind of a mistake, for people who don't know you. The sort of work that you do, Pankaj seems like a good way to go with it, man. I mean, so how did you kind of get into the space, man? I mean, what were the sort of stories that you kind of had that made you connect with the whole DAO revolution so well?
Yeah, so I started like my career started like within my family. So my family is like small business owner, so I've been helping my whole life, let's say, with the business, and so I know how it's to run like family business with few employees and be very close to each other. And basically that was kind of the base for my career overall. Then I switched to do some corporate work. So I've been part of Ernst& Young, EY, for 7 years, been part of the innovation and blockchain group based in New York. And really, like, when I was doing that as a part of the corporate job, like I was exploring more Web3, and like I was exploring where we can use blockchain. But I always felt like the corporation doesn't fit that well with the Web3 like thesis. What I knew, kind of the small business type of doing stuff before with my family. So eventually I decided to quit my job in the corporation and really go directly to Web3 and like really leverage that knowledge of how you do like small business to help the DAOs basically grow their business. Because it's usually very much like small, medium enterprise, if you think about it, and a community of people which are very close to each other, and they just need to execute on the same vision. So that's kind of how I got into crypto, and trying to really leverage my past experience with corporation and small businesses to help this industry grow.
Oh, fantastic. I think that's kind of a fascinating starting point. I mean, you kind of worked with EY for their blockchain efforts, and then you kind of went into Web3. From the cozy structure of working with EY, how did you kind of transition to the chaotic frontier that was DAOs, and how did you kind of what are the DAOs that you kind of worked with? What was your experience like working with them? And tell us about it. Okay.
So because my role was very specific within the blockchain team, and I had to work with all the other like member firms globally. So there were like, I don't know, 30, 40 other teams I had to kind of align with. And there were like risk management, which I had to deal with, and legal, and in each country different, and so on. I don't think it's a big deal for me now to be in the DAO, which is also a little bit messy, because like it's like, it's a corporation, but because of how big they are, like there are so many things you need to deal with, like kind of the red tape kind of stuff, and like people does not agree with each other, and so on and so forth. So I have had like a lot of experience how to deal with it there. And also what is really, really cool about my like previous job, and what like taught me a lot, like it's like there were different cultures. Like I've been working with people from Japan, India, Australia, US, Europe, like all around basically. And while working with those people, you learn how, like, what are maybe the cultural differences, and how you need to put kind of the proposal up, or how you need to talk to them, if it's more direct or more indirect, what kind of they are, like how they are interacting. Because sometimes like feedback in if you're giving the same feedback to a person, let's say in US, and you are giving the same feedback a person who is like in Czech Republic, like for the person in Czech Republic would be like, okay, cool, thank you for letting me know. And the person in US will be like, maybe, stressed that it was like something went so bad. But no, it was just like a little bit more direct. So that's something what I learned there. And now going into the DAO, which is global organization, again, we have people from all around the world. Everyone has different kind of background. Everyone is, slightly different. This helps me a lot to talk to the people and to be aware of those differences while I'm putting like governance proposal on, or while I'm discussing some new topic for how the DAO should be led or governed, and so on. So I think there was a good things which I have learned while working for EY as a corporation, which now I can leverage for the DAO.
How did you first start contributing to DAOs, and how did that kind of transition to the governance aspect for all these DAOs?
Yeah, great question. So as I said, like my role was very much like, kind of program manager type of role. So I've been dealing with governance stuff and operation stuff before. So that's why I knew that like that can be where I can add value within a DAO. So I started to work with Gitcoin, because I used to be a board member for like open source protocol or open source project on behalf of EY. When I left EY, couldn't be anymore, but I still think like open source is really important. Therefore, like Gitcoin was like my, let's say, number one choice to just be involved and try to contribute there. And they needed someone for the operations and managing the tooling. I had that background, so I jump in. And how DAO works, like you jump in, you start working, and eventually you will discuss some compensation. Like it's not the same as like the job, but you have hiring process, you go through the round, and from day one of your work you get paid. It's more different. Like the hiring process is like first month of your working maybe, and like you just like part of the community, and then you just like get paid eventually because you do good work, or not because you have not done good work, and you are taking the risk as a contributor, which I like, because I think like everyone should get the chance kind of to try contributing. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It's kind of like relationships. You go for a date. If it's not really good, like, okay, you pay dinner and that's it. Or if it's good, like, you might end up with a really long-term relationship, which is great. But why third party needs to be like interviewing you in advance, or like doing some hiring process? Like, that's probably something what I would not like to have. So I see the DAO basically a similar way. So that was the first. And there was two more DAOs actually I kind of started to interact with. As you mentioned, I'm co-founder of Bankless Consulting. So I've been in Bankless DAO, also listening to the podcast, like a great community of builders. So being kind of involved in the DAO even before I quit, but then more active when I quit EY. And the gap, what we have seen there was, there are so many builders within Bankless DAO. Like there is 25,000 members,
Quite a lot.
however, there is, yeah, and but there is not enough work for them, like paid work. Like you can run some project, but like, if you want to be full-time DAO or full-time Web3, you need to have some income. Like you cannot do it like, out of the thin air kind of. So what we kind of realized, we need to have some platform where the good contributors, which really want to be full-time and want to focus on Web3, have an opportunity to get work in Web3 by helping other protocols and other projects. So we created this consulting, and like basically what we are doing now is we are sourcing a business because other DAOs need some help. They need help with designing governance. They need help with marketing strategy. They need help with tokenomics. And we do have the resources. So we basically ask what they need, get to know the project or protocol. And then on the other side, we get the resources. We have some core resources already within Bankless Consulting. We have extended resource group within the DAO, and we get those people, deploy them on the project, help the project or protocol, with what they struggle with, and so they are happy. And we also give some like earning opportunities to those people, which can now be more focused on Web3 and maybe even quit their Web2 jobs if they get enough this type of project. So that was kind of the second. It was like in parallel a little bit, but like that was like the second thing I realized we need in Web3, and really go for it. And then the last one, it was more like to explore like DeFi, because I'm coming from financial services background as well. I've been working for banks and implementing some innovative solution for them. So just like how the DeFi works, and like be more involved in DeFi. So like Maker, IndexCoop, and so on. So that's how all this, like you mentioned, Llama, Index, Maker went together. So that was kind of my hobby. And I helped there like with the governance. So they had this delegation, IndexCoop own a lot of tokens, so they had the meta governance. So I was helping executing the meta governance. I was really interested in Maker, so I've been kind of juggling these two. Then eventually become recognized delegate at Maker, and Llama kind of came into this picture in the way like we at Index started working with Llama. It was like one of the main partners. So I knew the people, and I was like, I don't want to be this on my own as a delegate. I think like there is much more power and more value we can bring as a group. And Llama has such a great resources in this like DeFi space. They work with Aave a lot, they work with Balancer, and so on. I was like, and I know those guys are, super cool, super sharp. So I was like, okay, let me do this delegate platform but Llama do want to actually be kind of like spearheading that, and like we get more resources deployed, and we get this much more value to MakerDAO.
You've worked with a massive amount of DAOs, Pankaj. Now you've been a delegate for these people, and in a way, you're at the frontier of how these DAOs kind of operate. Now, seeing what's going on with the governance side of things, how has governance kind of evolved through your perspective, and what are the where has governance kind of stagnated? That's kind of necessitating the whole DAO to DAO approach that we are actually here to talk about.
Yeah, thank you for these questions. There are so many experiments in the governance. Like there are many different structures. There are many different kind of concepts we are now kind of testing. And that's why this group even happened. Like I was like, so many concepts, I cannot keep up. And I don't know which one is succeeding and which one is failing if I don't do my research. And why I need to do my research if someone else already done that. And that's basically how we are now treating governance. Like if you run some experiment, let's present it to the rest of the kind of ecosystem so we can learn from your mistakes and from your successes, and we can implement it to ours. And then when we implement to ours, we will present it back to you so you can improve back what you originally have and where you might have been struggling. So what I see the governance now, I would not say like it's broken. I would say it's early. I think it's a good concept, like the DAO concept of like more like ownership to people and more decentralized way of dealing things. Definitely something what I want to support and I want to succeed. We are early, therefore there will be many things where we will be failing, many things when we will be coming up as a new ideas, and eventually, we will probably have some like couple of like verified techniques like how to deal with governance, and overall ecosystem will improve. So when we look at the governance and the early concepts, like it was usually one token one vote type of governance, and without any option to like delegate. So that's how it started. And if you think about it, like it would not fly in the real world. Let's say like we would vote for a new president, and you would vote for a new president based on your net value, like basically based on like net worth. I don't think that would be kind of something what people will be happy with. Like basically the 1% of population will decide on behalf of 99% of the population with like the recent numbers. And now we are trying to implement this within like the DAO ecosystem. It's the difference that it's like in smaller scale and it's more like business wise. However, we are trying to still combine kind of the traditional corporate structure with more like the community structure. So we need to be mindful of that. What I think works well here is creating this kind of a delegation concept. So what has been broken originally was like people who does not have power like are not really interested. Like if I have one vote and someone has 1,000, like why I would vote? Like it doesn't make any sense to me because someone else will decide. As I said, one person will decide on behalf of 99. So you have first like not incentivization of voting because there is no power in it. And second is like you do not understand. Like you do not understand what is actually going on. You might be DeFi user, which already makes you very sophisticated, user in that sense, but you don't know how the smart contracts works. Majority of people does not really know how the smart contracts works. If they change the risk parameters, how it can actually influence me, they might see like, oh, why I'm getting lower yield now, and I would vote on that because that's the only thing I care about actually. But that's kind of the only. So I think that couldn't fly from those reasons I mentioned. Like, it's 1% voting on behalf of 99, don't understand stuff and so on. And how we are kind of dealing with it, it's kind of introducing the delegation. And delegation to someone who will make sure that they understand. So if I delegate to, let's say I have some token, I don't understand DeFi. Abhishek, you understand DeFi. So I give you, because I trust you, I give you that my one token, and you get one token from other people as well. Therefore, you are gaining the power, so influence in the community. So my one token, it's now basically all your tokens means, because you are representing me with all the power you have. And also, so I'm feeling like empowered. And the second thing is like, I, again, don't understand DeFi, but you do. And I trust you because you posted about it. You have some good articles explaining it well to me that even I kind of know why you have voted that way. So I feel also kind of safe that you are doing the best for the protocol. Therefore, my money are safe, the yield it's getting higher, and so on. So I think that's kind of the evolution, really high level, and how we are getting from like this, we can call it broken or like the simplest concept we could have come up at the spot at that time. And then like we are just improving on that.
So the sort of aspect that you're talking about, where what was once a one person, one vote for a system, has now kind of evolved to a very common form of governance in the crypto space, that is delegation, is where you have people who are kind of apathetic to what's going on in the protocol, or they don't know what's happening, or maybe the whole thing is too complex. You kind of have delegation set up in place where those who are smart enough to make a choice or a decision, the token holders kind of delegate that power to them. And that is the sort of protocols that kind of do with it. Those are the key protocols you work with: Gitcoin, IndexCoop, to some extent, I guess, Compound. These are the main protocols that kind of have this delegation style. But every other DAO has a one token, one vote, I guess. Most other DAOs, I guess. But now this is the ability for uh, each steward, like for example, you or Lefterist from Gitcoin, or Linda J from Gitcoin. If I feel that these individual personalities are good enough stewards along with all the core team, they get to have an active say in the governance because I trust them and I don't feel like I'm capable enough, or I may not have the time. Now, what you are kind of proposing, and what you have done with Bankless Consulting, is you want to bring the DAO to DAO governance. Could you get into what exactly the DAO to DAO governance is and why that was necessary from the existing individual stewards approach?
Yeah, great question. So when you think about it, like, and some protocols actually are well off with like the one person delegate type of thing, and it's like some like easy concept to understand, like it's maybe some movement or something. So it's more like about opinions. It's not about like technical work. So you don't need to understand multiple different things to actually be able to run it. Like if you run some like movement like for donating, let's say something like Bitcoin, donating more money to open source, like there is the technical part on the product, definitely, but it's like more straightforward that like you want to bring more money, community together, and so on. And I feel like one person can have good grabs on all of these at the same time. So that's why Gitcoin has a lot of like individual stewards. But if you need to run a DeFi protocol, just basically like running a bank almost, like there is the all this like smart contracts and like lending, or the maker, they have a stable coin. Then there is like real world assets, which is totally different beast, and legal stuff which are coming into the place, and so on. And like you have so many aspects of it, and as it's growing, it's even more aspects of it. Then one person cannot really understand everything. Like let's take a maker as an example. There is like risk adjustment, like proposal every month, so we are adjusting the parameters because of like market movement and so on. I can take a look and say, okay, makes sense. Can I do analysis on it? even though I have been part of a risk practice before, like it would take me forever probably to run analysis like that. And it's not something what I want to focus on. So I would rather like ask someone from Llama team who do that like regularly. Hey, can you check it if that it's okay and we should vote for it? And that's how we can do it. Then we do have like real world asset collateral onboarding, because I've been in the lending business before. I know how lending generally works, and I can read contracts and so on. So that may be where I can help. Like I can like review the contract, I can see it, and I can say, okay, that's generally a good deal for Maker. And then there will be some other aspects which might need some other stuff. And that's why I like kind of, when I thought about it, like when I would be like delegate or Maker, I was like, I cannot do it on my own. I just need more people to be with me here to be good delegate, or I would be voting on every other proposal because I would not understand all the proposals. So that's why I kind of come up with this concept, like DAOs should actually be the professional delegates. And who is the best DAO to decide on the other DAO kind of interaction? It's DAO that they work together with. And so if you take some example again, like Maker, and their business partner can be like Aave. Like they do have like the D3M deployed on Aave to for DAI. And like, so they are interacting. They need to kind of be aware of each other, because like if the parameters on Aave change, they need to change also the limit for D3M, provided by Maker. So there needs to be interaction. So those two needs to work very closely together. They are in the same similar business. So that's where like they really understand each other. They know exactly what needs to happen to be successful. And it's not like a competitive way, but it's more like if one platform grows, the second can benefit out of it as well. And now the question is, do they have time to participate in each other governance or resources? And the answer is actually no. Usually, okay. Like they are busy with their core product. They are busy with developing new features. Now it's like bear market, figuring out what's the top priority, where they can cut budget and they should increase budget and so on. They need to focus on their own kind of stuff, and they don't have extra capacity to be like Maker team like one day at the week, like be like reviewing Aave's contract. So that's where some professional companies can come in place with resources that they can actually kind of put them together. And in this sense, it's like Llama, we have developers, we have business analysts, so we have treasury management specialists. So we can cover all these aspects, and because we do some projects with Aave, we very well understand how Aave works. We are also delegate there, so we understand also the governance section and everything. We are now like at the Maker. I would say also understand how Maker is what they are trying to achieve, and because we are one team, I know what when Aave do something, if it benefits to Maker, I can like bring it up. And like
so
I can kind of facilitate.
The team that you're talking about, this is Bankless Consulting. That's the team that kind of makes that proposals to both Maker and Aave, or what is the team that you were specifying here?
Yeah, so this is actually the Llama team. Okay. In this particular example, it's Llama, and I can actually then explain more like the differences between Llama and Bankless Consulting. And I'm part of both. So in this like Maker Aave example, it's a Llama team who works with both protocols and can really like help them to leverage their synergies, and also help each be good delegate on each, because we understand the ecosystem and we can really provide good insight and opinions on that. What Bankless Consulting does, and where's the difference? We work more with like early projects and helping them design those governance structures. So if we are not like delegates on protocols, but we are using the resources from Bankless DAO and some Bankless Consulting Core, which are involved in like other DAOs to help design governance structures, tokenomic structures, and so on. So if I take an example, like if there will be new DeFi protocol, they are just starting, they decentralizing, they launching their token and so on. That will be probably where Bankless Consulting will come in and help them set up their tokenomics, governance, relationships, and so on. When they mature, become big as Aave or Maker, and needs more help on like this like more advanced technical development stuff and delegation, that's where Llama it's like kind of playing that role. So that's kind of the like little differences. They are both service DAOs. They both has like very similar vision of like helping other projects succeed in Web3, just playing in different fields.
Okay, so the way I see it, Llama, they kind of focus on the treasury management aspect a lot. Because of that competence, they kind of have this ability to be a delegate for Maker and Aave. What about Bankless? What sort of projects are they a delegate for, and why?
So yeah, so Bankless, as much I would say larger focus, and it's also because of the number of people within the DAO. You know what I said, like we have a group which focus on NFTs, and like NFT drops and those type of project, helping them with marketing strategy, helping them with community management and so on. We do have practice which I'm now kind of spearheading now, helping with gaming companies like entering Web3, building their tokenomics, and building their kind of structures, how they can deal with this new play and earn stuff and not like bankrupt or like failed as we have seen with some Web3 games already.
Okay.
And there are many more. So in this sense, like we have like we are not like that specific. We have much larger pool of talent, and we are helping usually like this project from like very early stages, like to build their product, launch their like raise their seed round and so on. So
Right.
that's something where we are playing with Bankless Consulting.
Awesome. Awesome. I mean, now that Llama's kind of worked it out, could you talk about the sort of benefits? I mean, in terms of impact, the sort of proposals Llama has brought in that's made a difference to Maker and Aave, that wouldn't have been possible with the community kind of voting in it alone.
Yeah, so we are, I would say we are early, so we will still need to see like how everything will play out in terms of Maker. So we are, it's our third month at Maker as Llama. So we haven't been there for that long as Llama. I've been involved for longer, but like not as delegate before and so on. But generally, like what we are bringing in is end-to-end development, and like basically you need something from idea. So we basically tell you like this is needed and this is what the benefits it will bring, till like execution, and you just like basically get it because it's like open source and public, so we can just like just develop everything on our own and then just like kind of hand it over. That's like where we are really like as a Llama, like trying to be the trusted partner. Aave Balancer, token swap, something we help with, Radical, Gitcoin, something where he help as well. So we know these communities, we can help with those type of stuff to really execute and strengthen this partnership. There is also some like more like development of things. So do some review of some new collateral. So from risk management perspective, should that collateral be onboarded? If yes, if it passed the review, we can also do the technical part of onboarding that collateral into the platform. So it's really like those like technical things which sometimes might be like nice to have, or like it's not core to run the protocol, but it would improve the protocol and it will get additional benefits and additional revenue. It's just DAO or like Aave or Maker or Balance or someone else, like they don't have resources at the moment to do it, or we might come up even like with better ideas at a sense, because we are involved in multiple things, and that's where the synergies come in place. We can help them without them even like need to move a finger. So
Absolutely.
so that's where like we are coming in place, like basically like very trusted partner, almost like part of the core team.
I mean, on one thought, it kind of feels really convenient. I mean, the sort of frontiers of tech that all these crypto protocols are kind of playing at, not every community can have that competence. And for someone like Llama, who's been in the game for so long with respect to treasury management and that sort of development, can kind of fill in the gap with their expertise and all of that. But then it begs a question. I mean, the community is getting involved in a protocol that is working at that frontier, and let's face it, Llama is a separate entity of its own. The way I see it, it's like the EY of crypto for treasury management to some extent. It is a consulting aspect. Now the question is, now if you look at it from that lens, a community that exists, that's kind of trying to run a operation of its own, and you have a service DAO for that extent that kind of consults a lot of different other DAOs. I feel that especially when you're working on something very cutting edge tech, you have to be kind of our community should be careful of the sort of entities that come in and act as governance. What was something that was a service contract and you give your knowledge and it is acted upon within the team has now kind of upgraded to uh, the service DAO having a say with the ownership itself. So there are a lot of nuances there that has to be really thought of. How do you decide? How do you kind of put in those standards where a certain DAO should be accepted or rejected?
Yeah. No, this is like, definitely concern we've been exploring or thinking about. Um, and what I would say is the biggest benefit out of this, let's say, centralization approach is the knowledge sharing. Uh, because if you are working on cutting edge technologies, and you can see it from open source software, like open source software move much faster, and like it's more resilient than like commercial software. And it's because like commercial, it's like team of 7 people closed in the room, don't see a light for a couple of years, and like, nobody kind of reviewing it, or like there is no like 10,000 people in the community who will be reviewing that code and saying, hey, this is actually wrong or something like that. So they can come up with some cool concepts. I'm not saying that not, but like this open source software usually like come up with more resilient concept, and also like there is just more eyes on it, more kind of power, like development power. And I think the service DAOs are bringing the similar concept to this. Like we are seeing what is going to be built in other aspects. Those things are not secrets. Like those things are usually on the forums. They're public. The smart contracts like are public. It's on public blockchain, everything. But people don't have time to like read over them all and then learn from it and then develop their own. They just like need to focus on their stuff. But because we are involved by the nature of our business in all of these, we kind of capture all of this education, and then when we start working for some protocol or DAO, like we basically transfer them all this power, all this like knowledge they can get from us. So what you said like is a kind of a centralization which we have tried to avoid. I would say in the sense of knowledge sharing, we should be as connected as possible. And like I see a centralization in this sense like really good. Like, and if you have like open source project, like it's on GitHub. Is it GitHub a centralized, like, is it GitHub centralizing all open source software? Or is it a risk? Probably in the sense that if like we lose all the data, like you will be kind of screwed. But like, other than that, it's good that it's everything on GitHub, because when you are looking for something, you just go to GitHub and you will find it. Same like Wikipedia. It's a centralized think Wikipedia, but like the community is decentralized. I'm bringing it in, and I see this as the same. Like we might be like centralized team, like we are the service DAO. However, we are like sourcing all this knowledge and all this like skills, experience from all over here. So when you need help with, let's say, this like treasury management, and financial reporting, you know that Llama knows the best how to do it. You know that they already probably learned from some mistakes before, that they already did something went wrong and they know how to deal with it. And you don't need to go through the journey again because someone already went through it, and you just basically hire Llama to do it, and they do it right. So that's kind of how I see it there. And very similar in the Bankless Consulting sense. Like there is 30,000 people in the DAO or 25,000 people in the DAO. That's a big amount of people, and everyone knows something. Even someone knows more, someone knows less. But it's a big crowd which can provide like big value, and we are sourcing the best talent from there to help other projects. And again, those people that has been in the space for a while. The other projects might not. They might be Web 2 transition into Web 3. They might have capabilities at some way, but maybe they lack tokenomics expertise. And we get them these people, and those people already know all this tokenomics which has been around. They know what failed and why, so we can avoid it. So that team doesn't need to go to the journey again, like launching a token, failing, relaunching the token. We can just do it right at the first place. And and that's how I'm thinking about the service DAOs.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of see where you're coming at from the perspective of competence. That yes, we have all these the talent and the competence. So these aspects of governance, you kind of delegate it to something like Llama for something like treasury management or something like that. But you take a look at how any sort of traditional company works. If my company doesn't know something, I would just rather have a contract and give some money out, but I wouldn't necessarily give him a stake to kind of have a say in every single decision that the community has to do, right? So what are your thoughts on this aspect of a partial governance where this see, for example, service DAOs. I mean, we're considering a future where I believe that DAOs will take over traditional companies. The boomer style of work is finished. DAOs will take over the future of work. How do you decide? Where do you just give money and where do you give ownership? How do you kind of put in the standards in place to ensure that yes, these people can be good stewards of my community, and we should kind of have them in?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I'm definitely aligned with like DAOs will take over the world. Because and that's also why I'm working on the book. I don't think I mentioned. So I'm working on the How to DAO book. It should be not published next year or so. So and definitely like one of the things we will be describing there, it's like
Amazing.
how the concept of DAOs will succeed, and like what will bring it to the world, because like the impact is really important here, and like how it can impact like people's life and overall communities. So I'm definitely super bullish on DAOs. From that perspective, like when to decide like give ownership versus money. When I take a Bankless Consulting as an example here, and like I take it from the service DAO perspective. So when we start a project, we take money as a first project only, on the first project only. And it's usually because we want to first like get to know the project before we commit that we want to like own the project or like be part of, the kind of upside and outside. It's like, okay, if it's someone like well-known like Uniswap, probably we'll take everything in uni. But if it's like new project, it's just starting, I don't know the team and so on. Like I want to get to know people first and get to know what they are building before I commit that I am there also like as a kind of stockholder kind of thing, and being participating in governance and so on. So first, it's like more like really service relationship, and then we can evolve from there. When we are still building product with them, when we know that we are aligned on our kind of thinking and the product vision and so on, we can get more into like getting more involved in the ownership side, maybe even hold tokens and help them with the governance and everything. So that's kind of how the service DAO looks like. We don't want to commit to something what we don't know. In terms of Llama, I think it's a similar. We want to focus on like key clients or key like protocols we are working with, and we are like selective in that sense because we need to be. If we are there, we want to be 100% there, not just like 2% or just like to have it on the resume kind of thing. We need to be 100% there. If you are 100% there, then like I think you are in great position to help the community like steering the development and steering like the whole DAO where it should go, because you are part of the team then. Like if I would not consider myself like as a not be part of Maker, that makes sense. Like I am there because I want Maker to succeed. I'm not there because I want Llama to succeed. Like it's like, of course I want Llama to succeed, but like I am Maker delegates for Maker to succeed, there. And that's I'm leveraging Llama resources to help Maker to succeed. So to your kind of question there, like I feel like if there is just like relationship on some side project or something, like doesn't really make sense to be part of the governance as well, because you don't know everything, or if you are just like starting there. But when you are already 100% there, you are committed. Both sides are committed. We will work together long term. We may have even like long term contract, like 1 year working on some part of the project. Why not to leverage all this knowledge to help them also still be kind of independent voice on the governance side and like provide the guidance where we can.
Excellent. So you kind of take a look at Uniswap for one matter. Pankaj, you remember last year there was this controversial vote about, I'm not sure which, I think it was Harvard or Berkeley. There was a blockchain labs, there was a vote to give them $10 million, and you had a lot of VCs VCs, and the entire vote kind of just went through to them, and it was very controversial in that space.
You mean the grant from Uniswap?
Yes, the $10 million grant that went to blockchain labs. So the point here is, when you take this sort of controversial decisions, what's kind of the thing is, it's not just important for these for a service DAO to kind of get involved, not just from a treasury management aspect, but to get really ingrained with the community itself, to understand what's going on, how the community actually thinks through, to be able to take a vote on things beyond the treasury management side. So for other DAOs or service DAOs that may want to get involved, like what Llama does, what is your advice to kind of help them be very good stewards and kind of take the right decision for the sake of the community? How do they how are they able to navigate such things, besides their core competence? If you are going to give them the ownership, then they have to be involved in things beyond the key treasury management aspect also. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, how should they get involved?
That's a great question. And like there are more like, let's say, professional delegates or like some like organizations which are trying to be like involved in multiple DAOs and like professionalize the space, which is great. I think we have a long way to go, but it's already starting. So people are building the teams to be professional delegates, which means like have an analyst, have a developer, have all the kind of resources available for that kind of job. We probably need to like improve on the protocol side, like how those people actually get like funded. What are the incentives there for them? That's something what definitely needs to be improved. To not be like, people should not be there for money, but also people should not be looking for, some other gains with like malicious voting or something like that. So we need to prevent malicious voting with the incentives. We should not also have the incentives for people to be there just for money, which is kind of tricky balance. But that's kind of just the advice to the protocols. We should work on that. For the service DAO or other delegates, which are becoming, I would say the number one thing is focus. Don't try to be delegate everywhere. If you don't have resources, start with one. Start to be delegate at one protocol. You need to be very deep into the protocol. You need to know what is going on. You need to know the core team. You need to be participating in the calls. Like, you cannot just be delegate on the paper. You need to actually work there. And so if you do not have more resources, start with one. Pick one which you are the most bullish on, or like there is the biggest opportunity for you, and start with that. Don't go for second. So that will be number one. Second, have long-term vision. Usually being a delegate, it's a lot of hard work without immediate compensation or immediate some upside. Therefore, you need to have long-term vision, and you need to know, like, now I'm working on this. I want to get at this point. This will be first success, second success, third success, and then I actually might, be like also happy with like what I'm getting compensated with, or like how it play out for me overall. Because we all need to be compensated for our work. Otherwise, it's not long-term sustainable. So think long-term, but like be mindful it will take time to get into like some more comfortable position. So that will be probably my like two biggest advices. Also, like if you want to do something like that, you have some questions, feel free to DM me. I might respond.
With that regard, my final question here is, now this whole DAO2DAO governance itself is kind of a very nascent thing that's kind of popping up. What are the other governance trends that you see are kind of shaping up that's kind of really out there, besides the DAO2DAO governance within the space?
Yeah, so DAO2DAO governance, something what I'm like kind of spearheading, but like other interesting concepts are definitely nouns, and how nouns using NFTs for governance. It's super cool. Actually, Llama just helped build some like interface for nouns, and like the way how they approach it, that every day you will have one NFT to be minted. I think it's every seventh NFT is going to internal treasury, so they have some internal funds as well, or some, not totally familiar with everything, but like it's just like the concept works. Like the stability of the price of an NFT, it's impressive. Also, how that like scaling up the community slowly, like the governance power slowly, like keep very much like consistent decisions, because like they started, let's say like 20 people, and then like every day one more person could have a governance vote. It's not that you launched airdrop token to everyone and now like you actually not sure who you are getting in. It's, if you think about it, like you airdrop tokens to like random people, and then like you are just like scared that they will come in and start voting because you don't know who they are. And like in this sense, like now it's they're in very, very like in the smart way, because like they just add one more person, and like they get to know that one person, and they get to know another one person, and like the culture won't change, because they will kind of be accepting only one more person every day, or like maybe it will be eventually like, as we discussed DAO2DAO governance, like community accepting into it, because a community by the burnout. But it like keep everything very much steady, predictable, and like I'm super bullish on them. And also how they then distribute the funds, like like the small grants they are giving, and even bigger, to really expand the nouns brand everywhere. Now I saw which kind of to Gitcoin, like there is also this nouns for public goods. So there is like kind of a fork of nouns for public goods. So every 12 hours, I think is that, like it's a different nouns. It's like public nouns, which will be fully into public goods. And, it's just like expanding the possibilities. So that's definitely like interesting concept, which just has been launched and forked many times. I think they might be forked more time than Olympus. Let's see.
Nouns DAO does a huge amount of work. I'm surprised. I won't be surprised if they eat up the entire space one day. The amount of sub DAOs that just kind of participate in this space, it's just crazy. And with that, I think, considering time, it's time for us to wrap up. It's been an amazing conversation. The sort of advice that you've given with respect to bringing in the concept of DAO to DAO governance, and how if there are protocols I mean, let's face it, the community sometimes may not be able to keep up with everything. Why should they struggle when the community is not able to keep up? So having those sort of DAOs to come in as an option for kind of governing at those key moments is kind of critical. And you've kind of explained that pretty well. And with the sort of work that Llama is also doing to kind of actively be a responsible voice for protocols like Maker and Aave, and allowing them to really focus on their key products while you take care of what's not in their key of competence. And the sort of advice that he gave about being a responsible delegate is also pretty fascinating, and something that futures to service DAOs may want to incorporate. Thank you so much, Pankar, for such wonderful advice. How can people, I mean, there's a long list of items there, but how can people follow your journey and the sort of initiatives that you are kind of really interested to get them to participate in?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter. I would not say that I'm like super active, but I'm trying to post about everything I'm kind of involved in. So you can find me there, Punkar_DeFi. You can also DM me on Twitter or Discord or Telegram. So on all of these, I'm at Punkar. So you can DM me there. So, and if you need any help, thinking about governance, designing the incentive structure, or would be talk about here, I'm really open to any discussions, and I'm here to support the Web3 ecosystem and make sure that those projects are not failing but succeeding. So super keen to work with cool projects out there.
Awesome. And also, since you're writing the book, when do we get copies of it? Is there some alpha for my listeners here?
So it will take some time. We are going through the longer official publisher route. So there, but we will definitely announce when it's out there, when the first copies are going out, and I will try to sneak you some initial copies as well.
That sounds amazing, Pankar. Can't wait to read it. It's always been fascinating. Also, I'm going to plug Pankar here also. I've been watching your the governance sessions also, and I find them really fascinating. The sort of work that you do with themes is really amazing. I think it will be a good governance resource for future delegates and operators out there. With that regard, thank you so much, Pankar, for coming in the podcast. Abhishek, anything else that you would like to add?
Thank you, Pankar. Looking forward to the book.
Thank you, Abhishek and Abhishek. Happy to be here, and thank you